Hey y'all, welcome to Challenge Accepted. I am Frank and I'm joined by Thomas.
What's up, everybody? Good morning.
Yep, and we are talking Secret Invasion Episode 3. This thing is off and running. What'd you think of this episode?
I felt betrayed, as the title said in this episode.
Dun. Yeah.
But no, it was good. I really liked it. Starts off slow, it gets like really intimate, and then it just builds and the tension builds, and you're like, oh my God. And it kind of ends on a little cliffhanger as it does. And I just like what we're seeing of Gravik and Ben Mendelsohn again. Oh, so good.
Before we go any farther, Mr. Greg Weisman just retweeted my post about comic books you guys should be reading today, including the new Gargoyles one, and Greg Weisman, the creator of Gargoyles. So that's pretty fucking cool.
That is so cool. And if you haven't listened to that, we did a Gargoyles episode last Friday. Jonathan stood in and he was awesome. And we broke down 2 iconic Gargoyle episodes. So fun. Love that show. God, and the comic book writer is throwing it. Let's go. Let's go.
That's cool.
That's the way to start Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into our rundown of this, and then we'll break down the episode. You starting us off? Ready to go?
Yeah. Let's try it.
Here we go. Start.
All right. So we end last week's episode with Fury kissing the scroll, Vara, and then we start with Beto. I want to say his name is Para. I'm not exactly sure. It's Gravik's right-hand man. And then another random scroll. They're given new skins or shells to impersonate these different or I don't know, military people, I guess.
Yeah.
We then see Gravik. He's bringing in the council and he's showing them, hey, we have these super threats out there. We need to become super ourselves. So we will become super scrolls. We then go back to New York City in 1998. And we meet Vara at that time, and her and Fury have a little flirt, and we find out like she's like, I don't technically work for you, and so he's like, interesting. That means like boom chicken bow bow. I messed that up big time. All right, so we're at present day, kitchen combo between Fury and Vara, which is it just seems like very much like old couple. They're kind of like set in their ways, but he's kind of gone off and she kind of gives him a little bit of shit for it, which he deserves.
Yeah.
And you get to see a little bit more of their relationship. I think that's really great. We then see that Gaia is confronted by Gravik. Gravik then tells her, hey, you're going to take me or escort me to this meeting. Well, he's going to meet Talos, and we get to see that part from the trailer where Talos grabs Gravik and everybody in the restaurant turns into a scroll. That conversation is amazing. Then we go from there. Gaia, we just didn't even get to the Bob part of it all, but they try to break into this house with Bob, who's a scroll. He has these launch codes. What's that?
You're almost there.
It was there. Anyways, launch codes go off.
That's it.
They stop him, and Gravik catches Gaia. And at the end, we see Vara goes to a vault and gets a call.
There you go. Yeah. I do like how last week when Jolly filled in for me, you were like, oh, time's up. He's like, yeah, okay. And so then and he just kept going.
That's what I've adopted that now. And also, like, it's early in the morning for me. Yeah. My brain's not quite working. So, yeah, time means nothing to me at this point.
I like how Jonathan was just like, I have to talk about Gargoyles right now, so I don't care what the time is.
He was like, whatever, dude. I was like, sick. I'm going to steal that. Yeah. I was like, 2 minutes, whatever. Oh, yeah.
So, Secret Invasion, I think this episode just doubles down on this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the best or most well-acted Marvel project yet?
It's one of them for me.
Yeah, I can't really think of something that's beating it.
For me, Wakanda Forever is definitely up there.
Yeah.
The emotion that's in that and what Angela Bassett is able to portray and what Shuri's able to do and Okoye, like all of them, like those actresses floor me. So this is up there. And I really like that there's tension here and they're really delivering their lines and they're believable. Like when you see the conversation between Talos and Gravik, you're like really feel the betrayal. You feel how they feel like they deserve more. Mm-hmm. They feel like, we deserve this planet. The humans, look at what they've been doing. Look how they're treating each other. Look how they kill each other. Look how they destroy their planet. Like we deserve this place, not them. And I feel that like from it. And so, yes, it's up there for me. I think this is top 3 acting.
In that conversation, because this is really more of a Ben Mendelsohn episode than it is a Nick Fury, Samuel Jackson episode, in my opinion. And I would say that conversation, you could feel the layers of like, I was a father figure to you. And also like, you're not wrong. Like, I think there's a level of like, I kind of agree with you, but we have to protect innocent people.
Totally.
And there's a maturity that's coming from Talos' side of the conversation that Gravik doesn't quite have. But there's a passion that I think we saw from a younger Talos. Like Gravik's giving the passion that we saw from Talos in Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Yeah.
So it's kind of like, yeah, I've been there, man. But like, and then when he's having that conversation later on with Nick Fury, and Nick Fury's kind of, I really think we're getting. Somebody else mentioned this too. Where this is Pulp Fiction Nick Fury, right? We're getting a much more upfront version of him. But Talos jumped right back with like, we were your secret, spy agency for 30 years. Like, don't say we haven't earned our spot. Basically, we're not your pets. Right. We're not your dogs. And it was like, hell yeah, you're not the dogs. You've been keeping us safe without us knowing it. And Nick Fury's like, oh, I would have gotten promoted anyways. I don't know if he would have gotten promoted the same way. Like, come on.
Totally. I love that conversation because you're right. You're like, how did Nick Fury become Nick Fury? And I've always wondered it in the MCU, but it's like, I don't know if it was a question I ever really needed answered, but now we know. It's like he did have this secret unit of Skrulls that could be anybody, get him intel, feed it to him. And it's like, yes, he still would have been Nick Fury, but would he have been head of S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury? I don't know. And I like that we kind of get filled in because it's like, and Talos can push back on him with it. That's awesome. Like, you're like, totally, Talos is the reason why you've gotten to where you are, maybe at the speed you did. It was so good. Yeah,
it's a brotherhood that's been formed out of fire with these two. And they work together so well because they need each other, but also there's like a level of respect that's like, while there's all this tension, like this last episode that I couldn't be on, of course, when he kicked him off the train, was like, dude, that's messed up. Like, he's obviously your friend, but he's also so hurt. And so it's like, oh man, the back and forth is so good on this. It also makes me think of Sonya, who I think might be one of my favorite new characters in all of Marvel, just because the way she comes in on that torture scene from last episode. And the way she opened that door, you notice how the guy's like, oh, that was locked. And she's like, oh, I still got in. It's like, okay, so you're a Skrull. Like the way she had that strength to pull that open. I think it was confirmation.
God, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, that's because he was like, that was locked. And she's like, yeah, I got that. So she just opened it right away. It's like, she's stronger than she's showing.
Interesting. Okay. I didn't even catch that. I mean, because how did she know? Right. I don't want to get too far off this episode, but
right.
It is interesting to think like, how did she know he was a Skrull and how did she discover the Skrulls in the first place? I think that's kind of a weird little thing that hasn't been answered yet, which would make sense if she is.
So much like Nick Fury used the Skrulls to elevate himself, I think she too was a Skrull, and I think she's one that Nick Fury didn't know about. That was raising up through the ranks to become who she is, and even with the ability, like in this episode, we saw that she recognizes, like, hey, yeah, you had a spy on my little owl in here, and like she can make a little eye patch for it, which is cute.
that was cute. I like
this.
That.
Like checkmate level. She has so much confidence in her role, and like if you think about I mean, everybody's learning aliens exist. Like, you shouldn't be so confident unless you're in on it. So I think that's proof. Like, oh yeah, I'm in on it. Like, I've been in this battle the entire time. I've been prepping for this chess match, and I'm making sure that I have position too.
That's true.
What we need revealed is the Empress.
Yes.
Would Sonya be the Empress?
Ooh, I didn't even think about that. You did bring a good point. I mean, aliens have existed, right? Because we got the Battle of New York in 2012.
Yeah.
But
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, it's interesting how calm she is and how much she still feels like she's in control. And would you're against a threat that can literally be anybody and probably everywhere. And you're like, no, I think we still got it. Yeah. And that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I agree. And maybe she would be opposing Nick Fury, even though she's kind of feeding him intel. She probably feels like if I give him little tidbits here, I could still control him, rather than him being free or like not in my sphere. And then he does something and it screws up my plans. So, I like that Empress kind of,
we need her to show she's too big of a Skrull to not be already present. Like, honestly, I'm surprised she's not in this already. So I think Sonya being it the entire time would kind of fit that. And I want there to be somebody that Gravik's kind of afraid of. That like Gravik's like, yeah, you're right. Somebody who's in charge of the million Skrulls that are not just the 90 or whatever that.
Totally. I like that. Yeah. We get to see more of the High Council and we get to see his plan for handling the Avengers, which I like, right? Like he still knows that there's superpowered people out there, which is super cool. I was like, where am I trying to go with this? But yeah, it is. I mean, it's awesome. He's gaining the superpowers. We get to see that in the last episode how he's gonna become a super Skrull, extremist soldier, the frost giant, Groot, yada yada, right? And so I like that he also says like all of us will become super Skrulls, not like the comics where it was only a select unit that got to do it. I think that's interesting. His plan is just to make all million Skrulls. Hey, you're all going to be super Skrulls, and we're all going to be able to take down the Avengers if we need to. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's seeing what the Avengers are able to pull off in the MCU with Endgame. I think he knows he needs basically every million Skrulls to have it.
Yeah.
I do like that they actually dropped the word super Skrulls, because sometimes MCU will kind of nerf a name to like sound a little more realistic. But no, it's just like, yeah, we're super Skrulls. We're Skrulls, but we're super. And I was like,
that was
cool. That's exactly
right. It was the cheesiest line in the whole episode, but it was like still one of the coolest lines. You're like, oh, he said the thing.
Yeah, exactly. Leonardo DiCaprio.
Totally.
I think in names now.
I know, exactly.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I mean, he said the thing. It was cool, and I like how they're showing, that they're doing research to make this happen. All of that was really, really cool. Again, to your point, I want to see who's above the High Council, at least the High Council that we see on Earth. And it has to be the Emperor or Empress. So, yeah, I like
that's
your
how
theory.
they work. That's what we know from the Skrulls. Like the Council's a cute idea, but that's not how Skrulls work. They're, that's Talos' version of Skrulls, but not the million, not the ones that actually rock. The other thing we got to talk about, of course, is I keep saying it's wrong. Is it Gaia?
Gaia.
Gaia.
Yep. I think I said Gia in like the first couple weeks, but when I was reading it, I didn't know how to pronounce her name. So
neither did I. Yeah. And I think Gaia means like Earth, and it's also like the boss lady from Captain Planet. It's got plenty places. There's a future challenge. Okay, so we got a big move in this one. She fully portrays Gavik's efforts and basically saves the world, really, for talking, realistic.
Yeah.
Do you think she's actually dead at the end of this?
No, of course not. Like, I don't think she is. It was a little lackluster because I'm like, okay, she's probably not going to escape. She's, driving through the forest. And then when he shoots her once in the chest. And I'm like, you think that's really going to do?
Double tap every time.
Every time, right? And we're talking about Gravik here. I mean, that guy was slaughtering people, stabbing them through the head. And for her, it's just one through the chest. Maybe that was, the nice thing to do because they grew up together. But I was like, I don't know if I buy that. I kind of wish he double tapped in a way and she still survived. I would have liked that. But anyways, yeah, she's around.
So then how does she survive? I'm trying to let's picture this next episode. It's going to open up with this, obviously. Right. Who stumbles upon her? And I think it might be that kid that's kind of hesitant about everything so far. Like the one she brought in the beginning. Yeah. Because maybe he'll come in and see like, I don't know about this. And, she's hurt and he trusts her more than Gravik maybe.
Yeah. And that, dang, you're killing it on the theories. I do agree with you on that too, because at the beginning of this episode, we get to see, it starts with those 3 Skrulls and Beto's part of it. And again, I don't know what Gravik's right-hand man is or whatever his name is, but he basically tells Beto, like, we're not here because of the past. We're here because of the faith in our future. Yeah. And Beto's like, it still seems like he's a little on fence. I could agree with you that he's either one that saves her or, she wakes up and calls her dad. But that's like my two.
Yeah, if she could wake up from that, I don't know, man. A chest shot like that, I was like, ooh, that doesn't look like that's the one you sit back up. Like if she got her in the shoulder, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's true. But there's Skrulls, like, like how many times did Captain America get shot in the Winter Soldier? Ooh, I got something else about that. Take over for a second while I find it, because I found something that was like, ooh, that's a really interesting thing from the Winter Soldier that kind of pops up in this episode.
One thing I think is important is when you look at the crediting for stuff, like Killian Scott is one of the Skrulls that we're talking about. I love how on IMDb, a lot of the names don't use the character names because we don't know who the character is half the time. And Christopher McDonald, of course, Shooter McGavin, he's in here. And I like how I have yet to see them use his name on IMDb, because it's like, we don't know. He's a Skrull who's pretending to be this one guy, who's pretending to be this one guy or whatever. And it's like, I do like how they do that a lot, which Shooter McGavin's he's just an evil dude, like in everything after playing Shooter McGavin. So I like to see him in other things because I'm like, oh yeah, he's gonna be a bad guy.
Okay, so a few fun facts. One, he was also in Hacks. If you haven't watched Hacks, it's such a good show. It's like one of my favorite kind of modern comedies, I would say. Too bad it's coming back for its last season, I think. If it happens because of the writer's strike. So damn good. You should watch it. He's in it too. But another thing was one time for work, we had to work a golf tournament and he was there and I got to take a sake shot with him.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah. And he was cool. And he did his thing, like signature, like finger guns and everything. It was awesome. He's such a cool guy. So yeah, anytime I see him pop up in something, instant fan. The other thing I was going to go back to though, when we're in present day between Fury and Vara and they're meeting, we had always heard stories, and we had heard story in Captain America, the Winter Soldier, you know, Fury escapes almost getting killed and he ends up in Steve Rogers' apartment. He talks about, hey, my wife kicked me out. And that whole time, you know, I always pictured it was just a story that Fury would say, like, my wife, to like get out of certain situations. And boom, we do find out like he is married. And not only is he married, but he's married to a Skrull. Like that's a crazy realization for me in this episode.
Yeah, and I really like the way their dialogue goes. Again, this is just actors flourishing, but their dialogue very much sounds like, oh, these guys have been married for 30 years or 20 years. They have that kind of like old school, we've been married for a while relationship. And I was just like, this is super believable. And I really like that they found a good actress for that.
Absolutely. I don't know what her name is. She's fantastic. But she's like, yeah, you know, you're gone and I grieved for you. Oh, that stuff. Oh man. Yeah, that was so good. And even it starts building the tension in this episode, even at that point, because he doesn't even trust her at this point. He's like, you know, and she was like, you were gone, you blipped, and then you came back and then you were gone again. It's like Fury's kind of a little shitty now. You know, he's always been a little shitty, but he's like even more shitty because he's like, these are people he's built relationships with. Like you said, like Talos is like a brother. This is his wife we're talking about. Yeah. And he's kind of not even filled them in the loop. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of hope Fury is redeemed a little bit for me in this show. I'm sure they will. There's 3 more episodes to go, but I don't know. It's just something I've been thinking about as I was watching this one.
I mentioned this in the first episode. It reminds me much of Iron Man in Iron Man 3, where he's like, I'm going to make a dome, or no, Ultron, where he's like, I'm going to make a dome that'll protect everybody kind of thing with my suits. And he's going overboard. And I really get that vibe from this version of Nick Fury, where he is seeing the worst of it and he knows that there's worse to come and he can't trust anybody. So he's going on that, like you're saying, shittiness of his, and he's leaning into it because you know it works. And it's like, yeah, but you've got people who fall in love with you despite of that, and now you're like distancing yourself from them, and they're the ones that keep you grounded. So you need to really be careful. And I don't know. There does need to be a big turn. We see at the end of this episode, though, his wife is getting in contact with Gravik. We saw that she's the one that brought Gravik to Nick in the first place. So there might be like one of two things I think is happening. She's straight up like not with Nick Fury anymore. Or she brought that gun because she's going to use this chance to go say hello to her kind of friend to try to kill Gravik real quick and just end this herself.
Whole thing. Good point. So at that last scene, there's a part where, right, she goes in the vault, she gets the gun, and she gets a call, right? But it's not Gravik's voice. Whose voice do you think it is?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. You got any ideas?
So after a second watch, I think it's Rhodey's.
Oh my God, please. Yes, there it is.
Yeah. So instantly, that's where I was saying in the beginning, hey, where I think there's more evidence for Rhodey being a Skrull. Yeah. I was listening back and I'm like, that kind of sounds like Don Cheadle a little bit. And yeah, I was like, maybe that's, you know, that whatever his Skrull name is for Rhodey. Yeah. So that's, I was like, oh, dang, definitely.
How, you know, I know this is such a big move for them. What if in this episode, like what if soon, because we're going to get the way that this is halfway through, we're 3 of 6 episodes. And the way that these Disney shows are structured is the entire series is a 3-act structure. So we're about to hit the All Is Lost in a moment. What if we find out that both Gaia and Nick Fury's wife are both dead? Think of the motivation that puts in Talos and Nick going forward.
That's true.
Like they would burn down the Empire for that, you know?
Yeah, you're right. I'm like, for me, it's like, do they need any more motivation? Like, you're right. And that would be powerful. But I'm like, the whole planet's being invaded. Like, Gravik was about to start World War III in this. Yeah. You know, a bunch of people were killed in Fury's life and all this. It's like, I don't know if they need any more motivation, but I agree. Like, if you look at a 3-act structure, like they need to completely lose everything in order for them to rise up for the third act. So yeah,
which is in the
I
next
could see
episode.
that.
The next episode's the one that, like, if you look at all the other
Oh, I see what you're
series,
saying. And then they
next
come back
episode-
in episode
right.
5.
so episode 4 is always
okay.
the everything falls apart. Episode 5
Mhm.
is the rebuild for the final episode where they actually
Right.
activate. So
Yeah.
something bad's happening real soon. And I think actually you're probably all is lost might be that Rhodey isn't with us. And Rhodey's
Yeah.
been a scroll this entire time working against us.
Yeah, but I agree with you too. If Vara's trying to do her own thing and she's, taking this as an opportunity to kill Gravik, actually I agree with you. That could be what episode 4 is about. I think so. Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you want to mention about this episode?
Gravik and Gaia is interesting to me, and I want to talk about a little bit more about the scene between Talos and Gravik in the restaurant or in the museum.
Yeah,
that was interesting. So yeah, Gravik and Gaia, like he can't trust her, much like Fury can't trust his wife, and they've known each other since they were little kids. That's interesting. Like they're friends, but she's afraid of him.
those two are
know
not
what I mean?
playing off very well to me, in my opinion. Like
That's what I'm trying. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm trying to say. Like
it's just not
as somebody who
believable
grew up
that she
together-
would still be with him as a friend, but also not believable that he would trust her anymore. Like to trust your basically adversary as
Mhm.
much as Talos is, a soft adversary. To trust your adversary's daughter, first of all, it's like, oh, okay, that's
Right.
unlikely. But then also like she's already turned on him a few times. Like there's this whole thing where it's like, oh, it must have been this other guy. It's like, yeah, but still you wouldn't keep her around just in case it was her.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, it is a little odd how much that they're like still together.
Totally. Yeah, I agree with you though. It's just not playing off very well for me in a sense. Like they would feel more like childhood friends, I think. And the
Mhm.
conversation's not like that at all. But he also feels like they're in war. So maybe he's just, a soldier, which brings us to that conversation. I love the conversation where Talos and him meet in the museum and he's looking at the painting and he gives this conversation between soldiers and statesmen, and the way that Kingsley Benadire delivers that line of like, I'm a soldier, I would pay it in blood every single day is so damn good. I was like, man, he's a good
Dude,
villain.
When he gave
love
that
what he's
speech,
doing.
though, I was just like, what a teenager douche. Like I kept
That's
getting
true too.
like my vibe from that,
True
which
too,
is
though.
I
Yeah.
think works out both ways very well. But I was just like, this is a dude who has no life experience that doesn't know that like going down in flames is not as important as making sure that everybody has the ability for survivability and
Right, longevity. We want to keep this
something
going.
he's not he's like,
forever.
I will kill scrolls and humans alike to make sure that we conquer this planet. And it's like, yeah, I remember playing video games and thinking that way, bro. Like you're
Yeah. If I
when
have
you
to
look at Talos, it's
sacrifice
just like,
some of my men.
I'm trying to keep as many people alive as possible, and I think this is how we're gonna do it. And it's
Yeah.
I just love those two back and forth. It's so good. Real quick, I want to step in though. I just figured it out. How Gaia is gonna survive. She's already injected with super scroll stuff, so she probably has like the orange stuff activate as soon as we see her again and spit that bullet out.
Oh, you don't think would he not know? How would he not know? Because it seems like they have to go
He
in
probably
that
does, and
giant-
that's just a warning shot. That's why it wasn't the double tap. He wasn't trying to kill her. He was just like, I disown you now. Boom. And
yeah.
shoots
So
her in
now
the
he
chest.
knows she's gonna go straight to Talos. That would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
damn it. Okay. I thought I.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I'm on board with it. I'm down to see her as a Super Scroll, but I just don't. That like it leaves a little bit too much open, and maybe they go that way, but it leaves a little bit too much open for now. His frenemy, I don't know what you want to call it because that relationship's weird again.
Yeah.
To go back to his guaranteed enemy, which is Talos, and then start helping them. That just doesn't. Yeah, I don't know if it lines up with me as well.
With that
But,
conversation they're having, do you think he sees him as much of an enemy? Well, I think he sees him as an enemy, but he also kind of sees him as like the old man. I wish he would just join our side already. Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
definitely. If Talos said, "Hey, you know what? I'm on board. I hear what you're saying. I'm joining your side," he would gladly accept him.
Yeah.
Because Talos was the high general before he was. He
Mhm.
knows like, hey, what you did was wrong. You didn't do the right things for our people, but you still tried, and you still are this higher up, elder within our ranks. So I think he does appreciate him in a way. He just thinks he's way off, and he's like, listen, we've waited this long. I don't know how you could wait any longer because I can't. I need to make
Yeah.
something happen now for the Skrulls. And Yeah, I mean, so I don't know, just that back and forth was awesome. We finally get the scene too where he grabs him and all of the, everybody in the restaurant is a scroll. I thought
Yeah,
that was so
such a
cool.
trailer moment. Yeah,
Yeah, it's such a trailer moment, but it just shows like Talos has people everywhere,
right.
everywhere. And he doesn't go into a situation without having a backup plan. Because when you see Guy and him driving to the museum, it seems like, why would they just go by themselves to this
Mhm.
meeting? But you're like, nope. He had all the scrolls just waiting at the museum who have his back. They're just there. And
Yeah.
if he needs to, like, yeah, they'll pop off for him.
I so my two favorite things about this show, and this episode in particular, is Ben Mendelsohn and just like
Mhm.
really seeing him flourish. And because before this, I would keep thinking like, what was it, Rogue One? And he's
Yeah.
such a jerk in Rogue One that I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
like
he
him.
was.
But this one, I'm like, man, I just can't believe how good he is at playing this like sympathetic, war torn, kind of like just beaten
Beaten
down
down.
character.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And then I also love the clear generational divide in these characters because I think we're seeing with like the Gaia Gravik level versus the Nick Fury, Sonya, Ben Mendelsohn level. Huge difference both in acting style but also how the characters are interacting with each other. And I really like that. I think it's something that might be fun to explore later on when we get to Young Avengers. Is kind of seeing like how the Young Avengers approach something versus how the old Avengers would approach something. And
Oh, yeah.
we're definitely seeing it here. And it's interesting. They're doing a good job with that.
They are. Yeah, you're totally right. We're getting to see. Ooh, you're so right. That tie-in from like the old generation to new. Yeah, because we're gonna get that with the old Avengers when the young Avengers finally assemble, and they're gonna be this team that shouldn't, and then they do, and then who's left? Hulk, Hawkeye. They're going to be like, hey, listen, you guys can't go about it like that. We've done that before. It's only led us down the wrong path or it's caused more problems. And, the Young Avengers are going to have to figure it out themselves. I agree. This is a good tease for that.
Yeah,
That's good.
I-
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
man. Because we've seen it in the comic book so many times. I want to say, what was it? It was Civil War. Started out where there was basically a young team that was a little too brash and
Yeah.
got a bunch of people killed. And it was like that started Civil War really. And it was like, yeah, in
Mhm.
comic books they taught us that lesson over and over again, and it's time for the MCU to teach us that lesson. They really haven't
Yeah,
done
you're
it yet.
right. I'm pretty sure Cassie is the one that dies at the end of Secret Invasion. Or no, it's Janet Van Dyne. Never mind. But still, I knew it was one of the like shrinking people or growing people. But yeah, we see the Young Avengers in there, and they're getting their ass kicked in the comics. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this lines up. I don't know if we talked about this offline or not. Did we talk about the Thunderbolts of it all?
We have not talked about that yet.
No, we haven't talked about how the Thunderbolts in the comics at the end of Secret Invasion, Norman Osborn kind of steps up where Iron Man fails, and he's basically the Val, I guess you could say, in this
Mhm.
situation, and he brings in the Dark Avengers or a bunch of villains posing as the Avengers. Well, at the end of this, I can see everything falls apart, and Val steps up, and that's where we get the Thunderbolts. So if you replace Dark Avengers with the Thunderbolts, that then ties to that movie next year. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
could see that all lining up that way.
There's also going to be a trust issue where we need to, classic Thunderbolt Ross will totally lead into this. The president, in my belief, the president's a scroll. So then all of a sudden, Thunderbolt Ross, who's been trusted for a long time, will become new president. And then he's like, look, we can't trust our stuff to Wakandans, to Atlanteans, to anybody, it's American only. And so then all of a sudden, the American Avengers, which is what basically the Thunderbolts is, will come in. Never mind the fact that one's Russian, one's, but
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
how it is. They're all American agents. And,
Mhm.
and it'll be his crew. And then we'll see that they go too far, blah, 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 try to get vibranium. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. And then hopefully, and Val, boy, she's such a good character. Julie Louis-Dreyfus, I'm a huge fan of. I'm watching Curb Your Enthusiasm right now, and I'm so
Nice.
glad that she's in that in that show too. I didn't know she was, which makes a bunch of sense. But yeah, she is top notch. That's cool.
She is. She's amazing. I just got to see her versus Fury at one point. Like,
Yes.
I just need one scene with them together. And, her kind of just talking down to Fury because she's like, all your stuff is old. You haven't done anything new. Like, yeah, you put the Avengers together, but then what else have you done? And then him coming in is like, no, I'm still Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in. I wanted that kind of line going
There's going to
on,
be this
so.
thing where she's talking about like, you've never been willing to cross that line. You have to be willing to cross that line. And then she
Mhm.
pops that trigger, and all of a sudden, Taskmaster kills some like dictator in another
IOP
country.
agent or-
Yeah, or something like that. And she's like, that country's safer now, blah, blah, blah. But then all of a sudden, when she did that, it was like, the next in line was Victor Von Doom or something like that in the country. You know?
Oh my God, dude, you blew my mind. That would be so sick.
Yeah.
Oh, bring me Doom.
Yep.
All right, man. But yeah.
By the way, real fast, Ben Mendelsohn doing a lot of press for this. Did you see him talking about Victor Von Doom?
I saw him talking about how that was his favorite villain.
Oh, he went off on that. He's like, you guys don't even know. He was just like, oh, this guy reads comic books. Okay, cool.
He does. I know. It just makes me love that dude even more.
Yeah.
Ben Mendelsohn killing it. The whole cast. I mean, really. And the tension in this episode, everything was, this is good. This is good. It started slow, but it built up, and you're right. Oh, I'm not ready for next week. It sounds like it's just going to hurt my heart a little bit as everybody falls apart even more.
We should go over the all is lost in each of the Marvel shows, because I know that, like, for WandaVision, it was when you realize, like, we're done with the episodic stuff, and now we're going into, like, you know, Vision is gonna fight her and stuff like that. So we got some news for that today, by the way. I can't remember her name, Rupa or whatever it is, the neighbor. She did an interview with a magazine and confirmed that WandaVision season 2 is Agatha. So they're gonna do she said American Horror Story style thing where each season of WandaVision is an entirely new story. So like season 3 might be White Vision or something like that. It'd just be a whole new story, but it continues the grand story.
That's pretty cool. I dig that. That's awesome. And take this with a grain of salt. This is definitely a rumor. We've also heard that Benedict Cumberbatch, Doctor Strange, has said that he will come back in another project as well.
In 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's exciting. I hope he gets to take over the Tony Stark role in a sense and gets to be the leader of the Avengers.
I haven't even put headlines out. You just said it. I literally said, like, sorry. I hope he's going to be, no, that was my thing in headlines too, is like, he's going to be Tony Stark. Like, he's going to be that guy that's kind of the guiding light, especially since now we're in multiverse mode. That's his whole jam. So, cool.
Oh man, it's going to be awesome. Yeah. What a time.
Oh yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us this Friday. If you're listening to this now, this Friday, we do our Geek Chats, 11 a.m. on Twitter Spaces, if they're working. So come and join us. And we talk more about Secret Invasion after a little bit more time to think about it, but also the latest in geek news. You got a little taste of it at the end of this episode. So come hang out with us, guys. That's Twitter Spaces. Challenge accepted. See you there.
Absolutely. Aloha.
Bye.